Hi there, my name is Murilo Piazzi, and I have just finished a research project on the specification of graphical information in BIM-enabled projects. If you're watching this video, you probably helped me by sharing your knowledge on this topic, so I wanted to thank you for sparing some of your time once again to contribute with this research. If you have not contributed with the data collection stage, keep watching, I might have some useful information to share with you. So, in this research, I was investigating the variables that specialists take into consideration when they have to specify the graphical information that needs to be inserted in their BIM models. There are many standards that describe how that can be done. However, most of them focus on how people should specify non-graphical data. The variables that should be taken into consideration when specifying graphical information in EIRs, for example, is still being debated among BIM specialists. So, without further ado, let's have a look at the results of this study. After analyzing the data I collected with BIM specialists using a grounded theory method, I noticed the emergence of 6 variables. The most frequently mentioned was by far the definition of model uses. The specification of model uses influences directly on how elements are going to be represented graphically in the model. While some uses such as conceptual visualization and fabrication require high levels of graphical detail, others, like facility management, might not even require elements to be represented. Another consideration made by many specialists was the use of project stages. When specialists need to specify the information they need in contracts, the definition of project stages helps people to sequence the way information is going to be inserted into the models. A good example of that is the use of BIM in heritage conservation, where certain model elements need to have a high level of graphical detail right at the beginning of a project. On the topic of high-level variables, many specialists think that it's useful to consider the stakeholders involved in the project when they need to specify the level of graphical information in their models. In this way, they specify who should insert a given piece of graphical information in the model, who will actually use this information, and who is liable for it. Now, we are going to have a look at the more granular variables used to specify graphical information requirements. But first, let me tell you about another frequent theme found in the data collected. The existing frameworks for the specification of graphical information requirements diverge on whether information should be specified according to processes or on an object basis. The analysis of the data has revealed that both methods are relevant for specialists. Also, the data suggested that these methods could be combined in order to specify information requirements. Many BIM specialists are familiar with the acronym LOD. Roughly speaking, LODs are used to represent the amount of information contained in a model element. However, currently there is a number of definitions for LOD, which makes things a bit harder for BIM specialists. Reading through these definitions, I found 5 common descriptions of graphical granularity. These are symbolic plan representation, bounding box representation, approximate shape representation, fabrication shape representation, real-world representation. When we showed these categories to our respondents, more than 90% of them affirmed that most of the graphical information that occurred in models could be represented by these categories. Another interesting finding of this study was the discovery of attributes that are not exactly related to graphical data in a programming sense, but that certainly influence the way that elements are graphically represented in models. These attributes are location, which is related to coordinates and tolerances, materials, which is where the elements have graphical information of their materiality, parametric behavior and quantities, and clearances, that indicates the volumes used in operations. Remember that I told you that there isn't many resources showing how we should specify graphical information in BIM models? After collecting and analyzing the data, we now know the variables that BIM specialists take into consideration when specifying EIRs. The diagram on your screen shows an example of how the variables covered in this study could be used. Lastly, our research found that contextual factors have a heavy influence on how BIM specialists specify graphical information requirements. For example, the existence of a government mandate or the procurement type being adopted in the project influence the way people write their specifications. So, it's a good idea for anyone trying to use these variables to understand the wider context before defining a method for specifying information. This is, of course, just a summary of the main points covered in this study. If you're interested in more details, please access the link in the video description. That's all from me. Thank you for watching this video and see you next time.